Hey. Welcome back to the Amino Biohacks podcast. Today we are joined by Jack Mason, very special guest. I know Jack from way back. He is an ex-professional MMA fighter. He now is also a manager and a promoter, and we're going to be basically delving into everything MMA and figuring out what does it really take to be successful in the MMA landscape in 2021. So Jack, really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks a lot. Cheers for having me.
It'd be good, we always start with a bit of a background just to find out how you got to where you are today and what was the kind of journey and kind of any of the kind of key landmarks and anything that you think's relevant, I guess.
Yeah, so I've been involved in MMA for now since 2005. So I found it back in the day when the sport was pretty young, and there wasn't so much, it's definitely not at the level it is now, and there were hardly any gyms around in the UK. I had to travel I live in Essex. I had to travel up to Cambridge, like 3-4 times a week to get my training in.
What gym was that? Where was that?
It's called a Tsunami Gym, but it was based in a little village called Warboys.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't know if you know it.
Yeah.
It was and it was in my coach's father-in-law's barn on a farm, and there was no heating.
Old school.
No, it was rats piss on the mats, everything. It was like it was experience. I always say to the kids nowadays, like that turn up, that they're just they're in absolute luxury, and and they got no idea what we went through back in the day.
No chance of catching Viles disease. There
was a point the entire gym caught staph infection, and one of the coaches, he got such a bad staph infection, he was at risk of losing his leg, and they put him in an induced coma for 2 days. So they got no idea. But yeah, so I've been been involved in the sport for 15 years, and I've seen.
What did you do before? What were your main sports before when you were growing up?
Just play rugby, play rugby, football, tennis.
You boxed?
And I finished. No, I never boxed. I did actually do some kickboxing. I was involved in kickboxing since I was 16, but I didn't really take it up. Although I trained like probably once or twice a week, I didn't take it up any sort of competition seriously or anything like that.
16's a bit late on as well, isn't it? Like that's kind of late starting, isn't it?
Yeah, there just wasn't, especially in Essex. There wasn't really that type of thing going on, or not where I lived anyway.
Yeah.
I was always interested in it, but I just never really found a place to train or anything like that. So
what was the main catalyst? What was the main catalyst that kind of caused you to?
Well, so I finished university, and I was looking to join up at just another sort of team sport. I was on Gumtree, and I was googling rugby teams to join. I don't know why, but I'm not really sure, actually. I was a bit hesitant to join back to Chelmsford Rugby Club. Don't know why. Can't remember. It's so long ago now. But I did, and I come across a link to some submission wrestling, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. I've always wanted to try like proper wrestling. I went down to the club. Some of my old school friends actually were there, and one guy was in the GB team for judo, and he was training there anyway, and he was also competing in MMA. So, it's a long story short, I went to the classes, started training with them, and then and that was it really. And I had a fight about 6 weeks later.
Wow. Straight in.
From my first class, yeah.
Was that MMA?
Absolutely.
Straight up MMA, straight in. Like.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Honestly, as a coach now, I'll tear my hair out if I had any. That, if anyone tried to do that, but
I guess that as well.
uh,
I guess because the sport has progressed and it's coming. I guess it's becoming like a fully fledged sport. I guess back in those days it was kind of all together a little bit. I guess,
this
especially in
is
the
it.
UK
Yeah,
as well in comparison to America. I guess so.
yeah, and the level nowadays, the amateurs, even the guys that have had like one or two amateur fights are incredible. They've been training since they were a kid. The level is just unreal, and the level of these low level amateurs is higher than a lot of the top professionals back
Wow.
in the
Yeah.
back in the day. The sport's evolved so much.
I guess because they've grown up with it, and I guess whereas when you got involved, I guess it was all kind of being people kind of going into it from other sports. I guess, and I
That's
guess
it. Yeah.
these guys have grown up just doing the pure sport. So no, that's really interesting. Well, and then how did you? So like, let's zoom forwards. What was the pinnacle of your career as a fighter? Like, what would you say is the pinnacle of your career, kind of thing?
Yeah, I'd say my professional career. Like I there's a big the biggest show in Europe, Cage Warriors. I main evented that event a few times. There's one event I main evented in Al Fajira in the UAE, which was a bit of a pinnacle of my career. I fought a top American from Team Alpha Male, and beat him decisively. That was pretty good performance from myself, and uh, I've won a few British championships and stuff like that, but fought the O2, in front of Holyfield and Lennox Lewis, stuff like that. So I've had some real big experiences, but I guess I never really committed myself 100% to my MMA career. When I started training at 23 years old. I already had a mortgage, already had a career in finance going on, and I could have made the decision to give it up, sell my flat, and sort of try and be a professional fighter, because you would have to sort of dedicate everything to that, and I didn't. I continued to do both. Um, so yeah, I made lots of mistakes from my career, but I had a good one. I had some, I was in the top 10 in Europe for 10 years or something like that. Um,
I
so
guess
it was good, but
you're always going to be your own harshest critic, mate. I guess lots of people look up to you, and you've inspired lots of people. And I guess there's always another level, isn't there? There's always another level to go, isn't there? I guess, but
yeah,
you're
well,
super.
this is it. I've definitely dedicated myself to training more, to coaching more, and now from scratch, I launched BKK Fighters in at the end of 2010.
And that's your
Um,
gym. That's your gym that you work out of.
yeah, that's my gym.
Nice.
Yeah, and
Where's that based?
so we've got two locations. We've got one in Chelmsford where I live, and then one in Colchester as well. Colchester is the HQ, and that's where we first started.
Yeah.
And we've created two from scratch. We created two UFC fighters. First one, Arnold Allen, came into the gym when he was sort of 13, 14, and now he's in top 10 in the world, featherweight, 7-0 in the UFC, and he's going to be UFC champion. In my opinion, I've been around the sport a long time. I really do believe that, like, given the opportunities over the next couple of years, he's going to be the champ. And then also our second fight that's made it to the UFC, both at the age of 20. Corey McKenna, she made a UFC debut in November. Big win versus another top prospect. So we're definitely doing something right. Coach is definitely my passion now, and yeah, it's been a journey.
I guess that's the thing with coaching, isn't it? It's like you look back and hindsight's 2020, and look back and go, these are all the fuck ups and these are the mistakes that I've made. And actually, like, you could sit there and you could dwell on it, or you could go, right, exactly what you've done. You go, other people can really value, like, this knowledge is super valuable, and other people could really, like, you can help to turn somebody else's life around who's probably going to make the same mistakes as you. So, no, huge respect.
Well,
Respect.
exactly, that's it. And I've had close to 50 fights. I've made some terrible mistakes. Like such as blowing blowing up too heavy outside of a fight camp, and then not dieting strictly enough. So I've ended up having to cut in excess of 32 pounds in 24 hours to make the fight weight.
You're lucky you're still alive doing that kind of stuff, I guess. Isn't
Yeah, I went deaf and blind. When I got on the scales, I couldn't hear anything, I couldn't see anything. I had to be led by my hand to the scales.
Literally.
So yeah, I've done that on a probably 3 or 4 occasions, which is, you know, not the best thing to do. There are, you know, I've taken fights when at short notice when I shouldn't have done. I've done fights when I was working at security. I was working as a bouncer the week before, and I got beaten up by a stag do of about 15 people. I got a champagne bottle over my head. Got knocked out, and I had my wrist broken. And I went and did the fight the next week. So, and I won by knockout. But these types of things, you know, like I've made some stupid mistakes in my career, but now I'm older and wiser, and I can guide all these young kids coming through the right way to do it. And where I've learned those lessons, you know, we've come up with this sort of clear path as to how to get to the top, and we've got this formula now. And the proof's in the pudding. So we've seen, you know, Arnold Allen, Corey McKenna, both get to the UFC, both top prospects, and are both, you know, legitimate title contenders. And yeah, exactly. Many more to come. We've got so many young kids training now, yeah, we expect a lot more to get to the UFC as well.
No, huge respect. It's just making me get a smile on my face just hearing it. Like, I love it when people take and, like, we all have bad stuff happen to us, right? As that they say over time that we all get the same amount of kind of learning and negative stuff happen. But I guess it always comes down to the character of the person and what you do with it and how you take take that suffering and how do you find meaning in it? Like, how do you take it and what do you turn it into? And that's the kind of key thing. So, no, huge respect.
Yeah, that's it.
Huge respect.
You know,
go on.
I was just going to say, you know, everyone has problems in their life, don't they? It just depends on how you react to it. You know, if you choose to be a victim of that circumstance, then you're going to be a victim. But if you turn it around, then there's nothing stopping you, really.
So let's go into a little bit into my second thing I want to talk about. So let's talk about, like, you mentioned a formula. I love formulas. I love principles. I love strategy.
Yeah.
So, like, let's talk about a little bit about the formula. I guess there's a few different parts to that because obviously fighting is entertainment, it's a sport. So I guess there's a formula of in the cage and what the fighter has to do in terms of conditioning and technical stuff and how you mix the elements of each of the sports together. And I guess then there's also outside of the cage, all the other kind of higher level stuff, which I guess is what you're talking about in terms of getting your pathway to UFC, etc. So maybe do you want to run us through just a little bit about some of your insights and things that really stand out for you?
Yeah, well, I think at a basic level, you know, the guys, you know, especially with the sport of MMA, there are, you know, there's many. It's very complicated. Lots of individual disciplines that you have to bring together to get yourself to a level where you have the ability to compete at the top. You know, so you have to be obviously a very good jiu-jitsu player. You're going to have good wrestling to be able to dictate where the fight takes place. You have good striking as well, and good conditioning, because, you know, being fit is you know, if you're not fit and conditioned, then you're not going to be able to implement any of those techniques.
It's like multidisciplinary, isn't it? And it's like, I guess it's like one of those like chaos sports, isn't it? I guess it's a similar kind of thing to rugby, that obviously, but maybe even more chaotic in terms of the fact you've got no one else to back you up. It's just you, and there's you inside this cage and everyone's watching, and it's kind of like there's no one else to rely on. But I guess it's like they're like exactly like you say, like there's so many elements to it, and I guess it's so chaotic, and it's about how you blend those elements together. And
yeah, absolutely, and you have to continually evolve in the sport, you know. So just that example, I'm not going to it too much, but 10 years ago when I was competing, the level wasn't as good, so you were able to for instance, my game plan, I would, engage on the feet a little, maybe land some big shots, but my whole game plan was really to take the guys to the floor and then beat them up down there, and then maybe submit them if I hadn't managed to knock them out. But it's such a hard game plan to implement nowadays because the level is so good. The guys are so good at getting back up. They don't just stay on the floor to try and submit you if you take them down.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. So the sport's always evolving. You've got to continually evolve with the sport.
Yeah.
And it just goes through. There's different fashions in the sport. Like certain things, a lot of people are using calf kicks at the moment because people stopped using them for quite some time. People forgot about them, and now it's a really fashionable thing to hit people with calf kicks and restart their mobility.
I guess it's like war. It's like you've got, obviously there's certain techniques and it's like, well, so somebody sits down and goes, game plan, this is my style, this is who I'm up against, and then I know that this is going to be effective against that style kind of thing. So then you go and execute that. And then, like you said about fashion, like everyone kind of ends up doing it. So then there needs to be there's an individual combat going on, and then there's exactly like you said, there's a really interesting point, and I don't think other people think about this, but obviously then there's a communal fashion of the done thing at the minute, and actually,
well, that's it. People will see something be really effective, and they go, right, I can do that as well.
100%.
But then people, because people are so effective at doing it, then people start developing the defense to it.
Yeah,
and then
exactly
something new comes along.
This is exactly my point. Yeah, I was kind of saying that.
Yeah, and so it's but that's really interesting. But the training and conditioning, all that sort of stuff, and the dedication is what you look for in a fighter. But then there's and you have to just continue to evolve over time. But then there's this sort of the X factor, so there are some fighters out there who are extremely hardworking. They do all that stuff that a coach will require, but then it's just hard. It's very hard to put your finger on it, but they just don't have it in competition. And it's definitely, a lot of the time it's sort of a mindset thing, but even I've seen fighters that are genetically gifted. They work hard, and then in the fight they just sort of break down in the fight, and they make silly mistakes they never made in the gym.
Yeah.
And
I guess I've seen Dan Hardy talk about this a little bit about this. So I've been brushing up on a little bit of some, kind of just listening to people talk about it. But he talks about this idea of the martial artist and the fighter, and he says that you can get these martial artists who are they love the technical element, the technical aspect of the sport, and then you get some people who are more like fighters who love fighting. And I guess it's that the interplay between those two things.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. There's I've seen it time and time again. Have these guys that are super dedicated and just really skilled, but there is the element that you need to be, especially if you're competing in MMA and not just training, you need to have that fighter element as well. So you need to have the skills. You need to have you need to have the cardio to be able to implement the skills when it gets tough. But you also need to have that grit and determination and never say quit attitude as well. Definitely. And the ability to dig deep when the going gets tough. And that is the fighter element in a fighter, and you can't train that. You can try and train it to an extent, by drilling a lot of bad positions for some fighters.
Yeah.
But in reality, you've either got it or you don't.
Yeah.
And you see that with just I'll use Arnold as an example. He has you just got to look at the guy, right? He's genetically gifted anyway. He's got an 8-pack when he eats, burgers every day or whatever. I'm not saying he eats burgers every day anymore, but there has been top periods of times when he's been growing up that I've known him that he's not been eating very well, but the guy's got an 8-pack at all times.
Yeah.
And so he's always been genetically gifted. He's very hardworking. You can never ask any more of him in the gym. He's always, he's always ready to fight as well. Never lets himself get out of shape. But the thing is, when the going gets tough in a fight, he is what you would call a fighter as well. So he's got all the skills, all the genetics, all the cardio, all the preparation, and he's a tough bastard as well.
Yeah,
and he's been in some situations in some fights where he's been in some adversity. He's been on the brink of losing a fight, and he's pulled it out of the bag to submit guys or knock people out.
I guess that's one of the nuances of the game as well. I guess it's like you're going into combat. If you mess up, not only as the level gets higher, it gets more intense. So not only if you mess up in a 200-meter race, if you mess up, fine, okay, cool, nothing, like you lose, right? And it's obviously disappointing. Yeah. Whereas in this sport, it's like you're going in there, you're getting beaten to a pulp, or you're going to get submitted, or you're going to damage something. And obviously, as the levels get higher, the risks get higher. And I guess that really starts to sort the kind of really see. You can really start to see who has got that. Got it switched on up here, I guess.
Absolutely. I think with any sport, it's and stuff like sprinting, it's got to be very similar, because with MMA, like, you might do a 2-month camp, and you might only get 2 fights a year, might only get 1 fight a year, depending on the level you're at, and you could be training all year for it, but you've only got 15 minutes of that entire year to implement everything you've been working on.
Definitely.
Against an opponent that is also in exactly the same position. Yeah. You're both, it's very difficult. The intensity very high. The margin for error is very small. Yeah. And it must be very similar to like a 200-meter final, whatever it is, because you really can't make those mistakes in that when something is that close. If you make a mistake in a 200-meter sprint, that's the sprint loss for you.
Definitely,
because these other guys are not going to make those mistakes, and they're going to get there before you. So, it's very tough, and I could say this for all fighters. Yeah, so I use the term specifically. If you're a fighter, I'm talking about you genuinely want to win, and you care about winning, and you've done all the preparation so that everything's been put on the line. But no one cares about getting hurt. No fighters care about getting hurt. What they care about is wasting that 15 minutes or making a mistake.
Yep.
And if you do that, if you waste, you've wasted the opportunity, you've made a mistake, you've not pushed as hard as you could, it will eat you up for the rest of your life. I'm not joking. I still think about fights where, maybe I didn't push it in that specific moment when I needed to, or something like that, and it will eat you up and play in your mind for the rest of your life.
I guess it's one of those things, but I guess is where you come in, and I guess I've looked at a lot of this, and I've looked at a lot of psychology in sports. Steve Peters, Dave Aldred, a lot of these top guys who are all about the psycho. Like, how did Dave Aldred make Johnny Wilkinson such a machine at kicking, or Steve Peters working with Ronnie O'Sullivan, or any of these other guys? And I guess this is what it boils down to: is we're at this new age, and back in the day, I guess it would crush you, but I guess we're in this new space where what you have to do, you have to be a little bit stoic about it. You have to sit down and you have to go, I've given myself the best chance of performing my best. And that's actually what people should be aiming to achieve. It's very much whether did I win or did I lose, I guess is how people normally judge themselves. But actually, if you've got a really strong character and you've really worked on to develop your mindset, I think actually reframing the situation. So have I given myself the best? I'm not, obviously I don't know MMA at all, like how you do, but when I listen to people like Justin Gaethje, or there's a few other guys who've got this very much kind of like a different attitude. They've got like more of a new age attitude on about giving themselves the best chance to perform well, and that being the main goal. Because if you do that consistently, I guess it means you're always going to be winning, I guess, on your own terms.
Absolutely, and that's it. You know, if you're prepared, if you can be honest with yourself, you have to look yourself in the mirror, and you can be absolutely honest with yourself, and you have done everything possible to be prepared for that fight.
Yeah.
You know, so you've made the weight the best way. You trained to the best of your ability. You've done everything that your coach could have asked for, everything you could have asked for, and you put it on the line, and you don't get the result, and then it's not as hard to take as if you know that you've cut corners, because then that will eat you up. You know, it's in that mindset. If you go in there, you know you've done everything possible. It then gives you the confidence to go in there and perform because you haven't cut any corners, and you can never lie to yourself internally. Really, you know, if you have cut corners, you know, and it will affect your confidence. So if you've done everything possible to be ready for that fight, and you haven't cut any corners, then it's always going to be better for you. You know, number one, you probably be very confident and you'll perform to your best. And then you know, if the result didn't go your way, you lost the decision or something, then it's not as hard to take mentally as if you know in yourself you've cut corners.
Definitely, mate. And I think that's actually probably where the cognitive dissonance comes in, where you really, it's like the whole shadow thing, isn't it? It's like, oh, in the back of your mind, it's kind of like, did I give my most? Like, did I do my best? Did I do what I can, like, kind of,
yeah.
Did I make the most of that opportunity? Because I guess that's what it is. And I guess that's what you do as well, I guess, helping all these young guys, is make them realize that there is a shelf life on it. We've kind of been through that. We've been through the phase, and obviously helping them understand that it is time limited, and actually you can really make something of yourself now and maybe change your life forever. And actually, even if you don't, learn a shitload on the way as well, I guess. So
well, this is it, you know, like just in terms of that opportunity, there is an opportunity to make a good living out of the sport. There is a lot of dedication required and a lot of sacrifice, but like Arnold, I'll just use him as another example. He didn't get any qualifications from school at all. He would have ended up working on the docks at Felixstowe in a job he absolutely hated, and now he's living in Montreal at the moment with his girlfriend, really happy. He's got an apartment in Montreal. He earns more money a year than I do, and he's got a lot of savings, and he's not set up for life yet. He's still, you know, he's well on his way to, you know, if he continues with his ascent and the saving like he's doing, then he's gonna have a good life after MMA, and he would never have had that opportunity should he not have pursued this career and given it the dedication that he has done.
100%. And you've helped him with that opportunity. I guess you've helped to accelerate him, inspire him. I guess he really looks up to you. So yeah, it's kind of like huge respect, mate. But mate, I don't want to take too much more of your time because I know I want to kind of we want to just probably wrap up in a minute. But I know your time is very valuable. But you mentioned actually kind of just got on the fly. You mentioned technical, you mentioned conditioning, and you mentioned grit and mindset and determination. Yeah. Up and coming athletes, would those kind of be your three kind of pillars of what you need to be working on to really make the most of yourself in the sport? Would you agree with that? Technical, conditioning, and like mindset?
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess, you know, adding to that is all of those things, but you have to apply consistency to that, because, you know, that has to be, you know, you have to be applying all of those things consistently and continue to evolve. Otherwise you're going to fall behind, you know. So you like, I've seen it like many times. We've got guys in the gym, it infuriates me, but they'll do all of that stuff consistently. They'll do all of that stuff sporadically. So they'll have a fight, you know, they'll have a fight opportunity. They'll give it 100% for 6 weeks, do the fight, win it, and you'll never see him again for another 3 months.
Yep.
And with that type of attitude, you're never going to make it to the top. You might win a couple of fights. You might think you're the man and post stuff on Facebook and stuff, but you're never going to be at the top level.
Definitely. So let's just go into each one of those elements. So let's go. So consistency speaks for itself, right? You need to water erodes rock drip by drip over time, right? So you need to be applying yourself. And one of my old coaches used to say this to me, and actually I think it's a really good point. Actually, you get some people, you get like a block of people who kind of need a bit more kicking up the arse, and they probably want to be a bit more lazy. And then you get some people on the flip side of that who probably do too much. So it always comes down to this balance and trying to find that sweet spot of like, the people that do too much probably need to tone it back and be more consistent over time, because 80% for a whole season is better than 120% for 6 months type of thing.
Absolutely.
And I guess there's also people that need, like, in terms of like, just really choosing whether they want to commit to it. I guess that's probably what you do as well, is that you guess you see some really talented people come in, but I guess it's like you're there, you kind of realize that maybe it's not for them kind of thing. And I guess it's like, and then you get some people who aren't as talented but are willing to go to the ends of the earth and kind of do exactly what you say. So I guess it must be quite tough for you in that respect. But
as a coach, you have to apply. You have to be flexible in your rules with these people, because I'm not going to name any names, but I've got a guy that is the epitome of a fighter, right? So he could forget about any of the other shit, the training or the conditioning. He's just a tough bastard. Like he has got like he already has got like a reasonable level of skill anyway, but he's extremely tough and wants to fight, and the results have spoken for themselves, So sometimes, when even though you still want him to do more training and and increase his level, you always know that in a fight he's gonna perform. So, and then you've got other guys that as I said, they're very dedicated to training, but in a fight, they sometimes don't have that killer instinct, and you have to try and bring that out of them. So he's really different for different individuals, and that's what makes it fun, So it's not just the same sort of thing for every guy. It's you have to take a different approach with each of them.
Definitely. With so that's kind of consistency, technicality. So obviously we've got striking, we've got wrestling, and we've got submission stuff. Out of each of those elements, is there any kind of tips, or is like the guy I've heard people saying in the UK we're not quite as good at the wrestling as they are in the States, or what's your kind of
I think they used to say that in the wrestling department.
Yeah.
But now now the level's so good over here. Like just take for instance Darren Till. His takedown defense is really, really good. People struggle to take him down now. It's just there's so many good people that are excellent wrestlers nowadays in the UK. So that's a different thing. But I'd say everything is as important as another. I would say wrestling is very important in the fact that you have to be able to wrestle, because then you can dictate where the fight goes. So if you're a good wrestler and you have good jiu-jitsu and you want it to be on the ground, to either to knock them out with ground and pound or to submit them, you need to have the ability to take them down. If you could be a ground wizard, but if you don't have the ability to take people down, then it's completely useless in an MMA fight. Likewise,
I've never thought about it like that. It's kind of like this.
And likewise with the striking, you might be the best striker in the world, but if you don't have the ability to stop people taking you down, then the striking is absolutely worthless. So that's what I'd say. Wrestling is extremely important for those reasons. It allows you to be able to dictate where the fight's going to take place. Obviously, it's all important, but I'd say the ability to dictate where the fight takes place is a massive thing, especially nowadays.
Consistency, tacticals and techniques. Conditioning, I guess it's being fit, it's being able to be explosive, but also being able to repeat that. So I guess it's like rugby or something, or any of those other kind of sports in that sense. It's like, I guess probably more savage, but it's this idea that you need to be able to go the distance, but within that, it's intermittent sprint. It's periods of power, I guess.
Yeah, that's so they what do they say? The saying is like fatigue makes cowards of all men, and it's absolutely true. Like,
I've never heard that. That's so good.
really,
So true.
it is so true. They're you'll see these absolute fucking monsters. Honestly, in MMA, especially at the local level, you see these guys where it's outside the UFC and there isn't the USADA testing. There are, and if you see people fight in Russia, you see these roided up monsters, and they will. It's so brilliant to see, like, when this happens, like these monsters will come out and they'll be explosive and they'll be, they might drop these guys and their opponents and beat them up very quickly, and they might get used to doing that, but then they'll eventually they're going to meet someone that actually has some cardio, is tough, and will they won't be able to, so they won't knock them out within the first round or the first minute, and then you will see them progressively get tireder and tireder and tireder, and then they mentally break because they're so tired, and then they just get destroyed, and it happens a lot. But I've been in a situation where coming into the third round in a fight, and I've been absolutely exhausted, and it was against a guy that I should be beating, and the fight got very, I was winning the first 2 rounds. The fight got very tough. I was extremely tired, and in the third round, and I remember being on my back, the guy had reversed the position. I was like, I could just quit now. And that type of thought had never gone through my mind. But my condition wasn't the best for that fight. I was absolutely exhausted, and that I do remember that moment going into my mind that I could just quit here. I could just allow the guy to continue to punch me. Definitely. And let him. I slapped myself mentally and reversed the position and dug deep and got the win in the end.
Yeah.
But but just the fact that I even thought that was just was just, and you see these guys you see because I've thought that myself. I can see these guys when they get tired. You can see it on their face. They're sort of thinking that, can I find a way out of it?
Yeah. I guess this is where the sport has probably come on some as well, is this idea that I think, and I've seen this with my limited experience of being in with fighters, they want to train. They haven't learned from the athletes, like the sprinters, who are like probably some up to like the epitome of getting ready for the event, but they have this tendency to want to keep training and ramp up the volume of training into the event, when actually the ramp up should be done away from the event, and then you just need to be chilling and basically getting not only physically getting ready, but I think exactly like you said, we give up when our willpower is low, and our willpower is when our neurotransmitters and everything are all depleted. And I guess it boils down to the fact that you haven't prepped properly so that you're peaking for that event. And I guess there's obviously the weight cut, it's a factor in there as well. But I guess it's like this: if you get that wrong, if you get the timing wrong, you can be really out of sync, I guess, with being at 100% when you 90% when you get into the ring, I guess. So so tough, man. Like, you guys are, huge respect to you guys, because it's like, it's very admirable.
I do think MMA is tough, but and it looks more brutal than it is, but it's the same as all other sports as well. If you're prepared for something with everything you've got, and you're putting something on the line, then whatever you're putting on the line, whether it's your health, it's the win, isn't it? It's all that time that all that time of preparation that you put in, you're putting it on the line, whether it's a sprint, whether it's a
marathon or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, definitely. And I guess this is the thing, isn't it? And Jordan Peterson helped me understand this, that the most valuable things in life, there's always a hierarchy, and anything that's valuable is the reason it's valuable is because not everybody's going to be willing to do it. And
exactly.
in sport, you're putting yourself on the line, and you guys are putting yourselves out there. There's no one else to hide behind. It's just you and the other guy underneath the lights. And I guess that's what makes it valuable. And I guess that's why people also get addicted to it, I guess, because it's a flow state, isn't it? You're in there and you're solely focused on this goal. You're not even thinking about doing it. It's not even exercise. It's like a goal.
No,
It's so goal orientated. Obviously, exercise is a part of it, but there's this is intensity, like whether it's putting a rugby ball over the line or crossing the finish line first, or taking the guy's head off. Like it's
exactly.
you're not even thinking, and it's a painkiller. Like Jordan Peterson says this. Purpose is an analgesic. Basically means if you're really focused on the goal, purely focused on the goal, like nothing, you don't feel pain. Like you're in it.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You just, yeah, people. I think, yeah, you always get asked that question in MMA, like, does it hurt? You know, when you took that knee to the face, does it hurt or whatever it is? Like, no, it doesn't.
No,
it doesn't,
definitely.
because you're in that state of mind that you're trying to win, so you don't feel those things. But yeah,
Shows you what humans are capable of.
Afterwards, exactly. Yeah.
Jack, we'll look to wrap up there. If people really appreciate today, it's some really great insights there, some value bombs. What if people want to find out more about you, or obviously come and find out more about your club and promotion and any of that kind of stuff? Obviously, what's the best place to do it?
Probably Instagram, I think. But so yeah, my personal Instagram is Jack Stone Mason.
Put the link in the description below for anybody who wants to get hold of that.
Yeah, thanks. And for the gym, it's BKK Fighters HQ, and then the promotion I run is Cage Warriors Academy Southeast. So that's it's where we develop the best amateur and low record professional fighters in Europe. It's yeah.
Guys, definitely go and check that out. And Jack, I really appreciate you coming on today, mate. And we'll probably get you back on at some point in the future, and we'll probably find some other topics to kind of delve into. But really insightful, man. You got a wealth of experience, and just huge respect, and I'm very envious of obviously your career and etc. But appreciate it, man. Hope
Thanks very much.
Take care.
Thanks for having me.